Hey, um, I just wanted to kind of record this as a kind of vent, or I don't know, like a not an archiving because I don't really care about that part, like in that sense for this sort of thing, but a sort of recording of I guess the my recent like state that I've been in or my feelings, whatever, my kind of mental um space, mental state, whatever. Um, so like since since like since January started of this year, 2023, like just this month that I'm in right now, whatever, January 9th, 2013. I'm sorry, January 9th, 2023. Just just after 2022 has ended and yeah, like I've been feeling a lot of not so much different, but a lot of things just in general. I've been feeling a lot of things recently. Certainly a lot more all at once um, than last year, I would say. Uh, and when I say that I know the pattern, not so much. Like I like have I recognized the pattern that is these kind of emotions coming up? And not really, but also like a little bit. So it seems to honestly mostly be a pattern with the changing of the seasons, I guess you could say, which is probably not too um weird of a thing for a lot of people. Like for me at least, I'm a person that I don't particularly am not a fan of the cold. I don't like feeling very cold or whatever. That's why you'll often see me wearing like a jacket or whatever, there's like a sweatshirt, whatever you want to call it, a jacket. Cause even for a lot of people, it's been fairly cold this winter so far, like since the December and everything. And into January, it's not been like super crazy cold like it was for a little while in December and all that stuff. So, I've sort of acclimatized to it for this season to some extent, but I still feel like really cold, especially on my days that I'm not eating or whatever my fasting days. I just feel like very often very cold physically or whatever, and I don't feel like cold as well as lethargic, like tired or whatever, just because when I get like really cold, sometimes I just feel like laying on my bed and then having my hands, especially because they're the ones, hands and feet, obviously, they're the things that, someone would say, oh, it's poor circulation. Maybe it is, but I don't think that's the only reason or whatever. Like, I just feel, even my head gets cold or whatever. And, at least I like to put my hands in my pockets to get warm. But then I don't know. I just am not a fan of the. I'm not a fan of the cold. Um, it's obviously when you go to bed or whatever, it's a lot easier to get to sleep when it's colder than it's too hot. Like, oh man, trying to get to sleep when you're sweating or something. Oh boy, that's not happening. I've had that happen a few times, but when you're cold just during the day, that's when it's the worst for me. Um, and just that's the kind of pattern that I've seen where I sort of have these more different kind of emotions or these thoughts, I guess you could say. Um, like I guess I guess that's how I kind of see the pattern to some extent. So I know everything comes in cycles. I know this. I've observed it constantly and just how this reality works and everything. Everything comes in cycles. So any of these waves of emotions and feelings and thoughts and stuff like that that come about, eventually they're always going to go away. But it always affects you in a similar way when it does happen. And I guess it is a sign of some mental um, fortitude. I don't know, like some fortitude or stability, whatever, that you can understand this, and then it makes it easier to get through it without it completely destroying you or whatever. Just like completely, like the people that get real crazy, depressed or whatever stuff. But the feelings are still there no matter what, even if you understand how they kind of come about and what when they will eventually go away and stuff like go away or be replaced by something else, that kind of deal. Like I wouldn't say that this entire January or this entire New Year, whatever, this entire year so far has been like bad, and it hasn't. It hasn't been or anything like that. It's just I've been having a lot of different feelings since this year started, which is only, like just barely over a week ago it started, like, or whatever. And maybe even at the end of December, I'm like, I'm so losing track of so much time nowadays. It's a crazy, or whatever, quote unquote, time. Uh, but just been feeling like real different mentally the past, at least 2 weeks. At least 2 weeks, I would think. And some days in between that have been like nice, where they've been like, I don't feel those kind of I don't even want to use the term negative anymore for a lot how I describe things. I want to try to word it differently. Because I kind of look at this place as like everything has a reason to exist or whatever. Every emotion, every there's no black and white per se, that everything is like there is no good and no bad. This is how I look at it. Like the goodness and the quote unquote badness or whatever, they're just kind of one and the same thing. One makes up the other kind of deal. Oh yeah, yin and yang, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. Um, One can't exist without the other kind of deal. Um, and so I don't want to describe it as negative per se. It's just I guess I'll describe it as kind of I've been feeling painful emotions recently, painful feelings recently, compared to say, one could say not painful or whatever. Good. That I like I said, I don't want good. Uh, Enjoyable, nice. I don't know, enjoyable, nice feelings in comparison. I've been feeling like painful feelings, painful emotions recently. Not painful physically per se or anything like that. I've been having a few weird things here and there physically, but not really like anything too bad or anything like that. Not nothing too out of the ordinary, but mostly mental or psychological pain, I guess you could say. Um, and like I said, I'm just trying to kind of record this because as I've been feeling these, and so on some days, I've just been thinking like during those days, during those feelings, those kind of episodes of emotions or whatever, periods. I've been thinking like I should record this and like talk about it and whatever, just describe it to some extent because I think that is useful in understanding it and maybe not so much overcoming it, but kind of, I guess, gaining from it, growing from it, I guess. I don't know. Not just making it something that's in that one specific moment, even though that's always how it's going to be at the end of the day. Like recording something, you're never going to truly convey exactly what you're feeling in that moment. But at least you can get some kind of idea, I guess. Which is the reason that I decided I was like, you know what? I'm feeling something in that kind of spectrum today, that kind of painful thing right now. Um, and I'm like, you know what? I just want to record it. So that's what I'm doing right now. Um, but I guess the kind of painful feelings I've been experiencing, have been kind of like things in the category of like dread, Um, Sadness, like I enjoy sadness. Like I guess there's obviously different things of sadness, different ways to kind of experience it, or different ways that it's described, and have different spectrum of sadness or whatever. But I guess dread, sadness, melancholy, um, lethargy, being like tired, lethargic feelings where you just don't feel like doing anything. Um, what would be the word? Anxiety. Yeah, like anxiety. But it's weird with that because I know what anxiety feels like. Like, I'm not somebody who has like panic attacks or anything like that, or like super anxious where I can't function kind of deal. But I think I've kind of know what the physical anxiety feels like. I definitely know that feeling. I'm pretty sure, at least. And for me, at least, it's almost like an asthmatic kind of reaction in a weird way. It's not like how you might expect, like feeling like your throat's closing up or something, but it feels. I'm almost feeling it like right this moment trying to describe it. Weirdly enough, it feels like you have trouble getting a full breath, and every time you try to breathe in, or not almost every time you try to breathe in, it doesn't feel like a satisfactory um inhalation or whatever. Inhalation and exhalation, and then you just keep trying to the next one. You'll hope that the next one will feel satisfying and stuff like that, and that kind of builds on atop itself, that you feel more anxious trying to make that breath feel better or whatever. Like you almost feel like you're running out of oxygen almost. It's kind of hard to describe, but that's what I'm pretty sure that physical anxiety feels like. And there was many times, I don't know if it was last year, but there was a good few times during some months, like definitely just in general, but the past few years, that I've had feelings like that, or I've had those kind of physical anxiety symptoms, whatever, that I've noticed. And whenever I experience them, it's like I always think like I know this is gonna go away. I don't know exactly why I'm feeling this right now, why this is happening right now, but it just is, and then I just get through it, that kind of thing. Just like when I like recently, I've had like some or not so much migraines, but cluster headaches, where like one side of my face or my eye or something like that, especially centered around there, is like aching, and just like you don't feel like doing anything because of that. Kind of like, I guess, a migraine. Um, So I experienced like 2 or 3 days of that the past few days or whatever, like more, not even like horrible, like can't do anything, but just like you don't feel like doing anything. You're just like, my eye hurts or my head hurts kind of thing. You just feel like just laying around, the lethargic kind of feeling. Um, but with the anxiety thing, I've been feeling more with these recent um feelings or emotions, whatever, waves of emotion, waves of thoughts, have been more mental or psychological anxiety, which is something that I don't experience nearly as much as that kind of occasional physical anxiety. Um, the kind of thoughts of like dread and hopelessness or whatever kind of thing, like the hopelessness is like it's kind of an accurate way to describe it, I guess, but it's not like that severe. You just kind of just, at least with me recently, I've just been kind of sitting there, just like with my hand on my forehead, and I'm just like listening to something or whatever. I'm just thinking like I want to do something right now. Like I want to quote unquote accomplish something, like one of these many numerous like things that I strive to do in my hobbies and goals or whatever you want to call it, that kind of stuff. Pointless at the end of the day, but it makes me, it makes me want to live life or whatever. That's the things that I want to do. Um, or I want to, like, quote unquote accomplish or whatever. That's the things I want to strive for, the things that occupy, I want these things to occupy my time, um, or whatever. That's just the things that I want to do, like hobbies and stuff, things I want to accomplish. But, it's just been these emotions that have been, like, especially on that one, what I've been feeling specifically today or tonight. I was, working on my, one of the one of these this game mod that I'm working on, this locked loot containers for that game Daggerfall that I've talked about a bunch. And I was working on it, and it was going pretty well. I was doing some testing and stuff, and a little bit of coding, like mostly just kind of like doing the testing and then doing some bug fixes based on that testing, and like really not that much coding at the end of the day, but testing and stuff, and it was good. It was good that I worked on that. But then I was just thinking at the end of doing that, I was like, okay, well, I'm done with not so much done with this one little feature, but I'm happy enough with this one feature to kind of move on, I guess, to the next feature I want to work on for the mod, of the big kind of list that I have for it. And I was just kind of feeling like a sense of like dread not too long ago, and I was just thinking about it. I was like, man, like I was working on that since like I don't know, like 6 p.m. today. I started kind of late just doing the stuff, and then it was like 9 o'clock afterward. And I guess that's not really that long when I think about it, but I was just thinking like, man, I did that work today or whatever. And now, if I want to work on these next features, I'm gonna have to do even more work, like even more stuff that I'm gonna have to, make some new scripts or whatever, new classes, as they would, I guess, be called in programming kind of deal, like new classes, new files, new scripts, and then work on a completely new feature that I haven't, that's something that I'll have to get over and understand and get through that puzzle solving kind of deal with it. That's always the beginning. And then I was just thinking like, man, there's so many things I still have to work on polish wise and like make it better, and like the stuff that's like mostly basic kind of framework now, it's like I need to actually add like numbers to them now, like formula, and do all this stuff. And it's honestly, it comes down to it's my fault, obviously, just like anything. It's our own fault for everything in this place. um no more. I'll agree with uncanny deduction there 100%, and I've always agreed with that kind of mentality, is that no victim complex or whatever, no scapegoating, whatever shit. It's all onto me to some extent, even though he described it today differently, where he was saying he doesn't hate anyone specifically, but he hates everyone equally, or he hates everyone. Instead he doesn't hate one person or anything, he doesn't hate one individual, he hates, or one thing, he hates everybody in the same way. But I look at it like, yeah, I just put as much responsibility onto everything as I can to myself, because it's like, end of the day, I make my own problems for the most part. I create them, I manifest them, whatever. It's just how it is. I experience them and I deal with them. But there just comes a time, and just like it is right now, where I just feel like talking about it, the feeling, and I was just like, man, it's I did like just a little bit here, and then there's gonna be so much more stuff I'm gonna have to do. Just like think of formulas. I don't know how the hell, what kind of formulas I'm gonna make for these things that are gonna be feel satisfactory to me, for how to unlock these chests and all these other features that I have for them, for like traps, and have the loot changed if the chest gets bashed open compared to unlocked open, and all these other things and stuff. And then you always come to the thing where it's the worst thing that you can do in these cases, and compare your work, compare your output to others. And I was just thinking, I was like, man, how in the hell do these people get anything done? Like me, I have all the time in the fucking world here, man. I'm a goddamn neat. I just fucking I wake up, I do my regular little routine stuff. I watch videos, I play games, occasionally, but I watch videos, I listen to stuff. I make my own videos, obviously, but I do this, in my own little microcosm. I do my stuff, and I'm like, where the fuck does all this time come from? I mean, I know time is an illusion, and it's obviously this illusion has broken down in many ways for me, and that's why time feels like it just doesn't matter, or it doesn't make any sense, or it just goes so fast recently, because I realized that it is an illusion and all that stuff. then I'm just like, it always comes to like these people that are not like me, obviously. It's you always just think like, they make these mods or they make these programs and they do it in like, they work shift work or whatever bullshit, and it's like, oh yeah, they just spend 8, 10 hours a day programming for somebody else or some shit like that. And I guess maybe that makes it easier in some ways that you're being kind of told they're not designing in a lot of cases, they're not designing the framework or the software that they're doing, is that they're being told, given a direction in that way. They're given a direction by somebody else to do something. And that makes it kind of easier to that kind of makes it easier to do it, I guess, and just kind of go through with it at the end. Where with, I guess, when it's your own thing, it's different because, like, I want my mods and my mod to be something at the end of the day, something I have my own expectations, my own ambitions for it or whatever. I want it to be some certain thing. I have my own standard. I mean, compared to some people, I guess, fairly high standard of quality that I want this thing to be at the end of the day. And I probably set that bar too high, obviously. And then it makes me feel these painful kind of feelings like I was just feeling before, where I'm just like the feelings of hopelessness or inadequacy or whatever, because I'm just thinking like all these days that I'm working on these things and I'm still like I still got so many things to work on or so many features to work on for it, and it's like holy shit, how am I gonna get through it? And somehow I do. It's somehow you do in the end. That's the thing you have to look at it as. Like I always think that I almost get, especially when I was making some of my mods months and months and months ago, when I was like throwing them out, like outputting them like pretty crazy to some extent. Um, you almost feel like you get possessed to some extent, like to some degree, like possessed during that time. You're like, you look at the code, you go back and you're like, who made this? Like, who the fuck coded this? Like, I don't remember doing this. I don't know how I did this. Like, obviously it's different when you're in that specific moment, but then you just think like, how did I figure this out? Or how did I do this? How did I, it's just crazy to think about after the fact. When you look back at it, you're like, man, how did I do this? How did I figure this out? And then you just somehow do. That's why I almost feel like you get possessed or you go on the frequency or some shit, and it just kind of happens. Um, but then I'm just recently thinking, I'm like, I want to get this mod done because I want to work on so many other mods. Like I have so many other ideas and things that I want to be in the game Daggerfall. So many other mods and ideas that I want it to be something that makes the game significantly better, like for what its initial ambitions were and stuff like that, and give the desire for me to actually play it consistently, not just for testing purposes. I want to actually play it and be like, immersed in it and not feel like constantly thinking like, oh man, I wish there was this or I wish there was that kind of thing. And there's always going to be that feeling, just how it is, I guess, as a creator and an artist and a creator being kind of deal. And sometimes you just have to settle after a point, obviously, and that's something I could see probably the normies being a nice thing in a way, is that they just kind of settle for what they have instead of thinking about what it could be and what could be better kind of deal. Even though normies also think like that, the ones that believe in the science and all that, the futuristic science and bullshit like that with space and everything and all those ambitions and stuff. Oh yeah, Tesla and SpaceX and all this horse shit, all that stuff. But just the people like that I look at, like my dad, who just works and works and works and works, and he doesn't do anything else besides working, and comes home, plays his game, eats his poker game or whatever, plays that for hours on end, watches like conservative crap on the TV, whatever, conservative cartoons, uh just like, that the lower level conspiracy kind of stuff. and just does that, and I'm just like, oh man, I don't know how these people do that. Like, I'm not the same. Obviously, I'm not the same as other people. That's just how it is. And but it makes me feel obviously as it always would be like an isolation kind of deal where you're just like, oh man, I can't relate to anybody. Almost it feels like it's even though you can, it's just you feel alone at the same time, and it hurts. It's I guess there's no other way to describe it. Is that it emotionally, it psychologically, it's painful. It hurts, and that's just the one thing that I've specifically felt today that I felt like expressing. Was that feeling of like dread and like how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna make these mods? How am I gonna get these do these features? How am I gonna do this coding? How am I gonna get past these hurdles? And just that feeling of like hopelessness and painful and despair or whatever you kind of do. Just like that kind of feeling. Um, and then one that was even more apparent a few days ago, like maybe a week ago, or like 4 or 5 days, or probably longer than that ago, or like a week. I was just feeling um, like a lot of like a real bad feeling of like a loneliness or whatever, like isolate. Not so much isolation per se, but like yeah, I guess loneliness or whatever. I was just thinking of like uh as I would as and I've had these thoughts like many times, and I know they probably will never go away, which is fine. It's just when they come up, it always just makes you think, and then you think too much, and then you get that painful feeling from that thinking or whatever, the hurtful thoughts or whatever thing. Like, what was it specific? I didn't really talk. I didn't really want to talk about this, even though I should not feel weird about talking about any of these things. But like, um, what was it? Like I've had these feelings, and I'm sure maybe like most. I don't know how women they probably feel. Maybe they feel it even worse. But guys, at least I feel. Um, I was just thinking at that time, like, man, it was just one day. That one day, like a week ago, where I was just like in complete, like almost paralyzed, just in my thoughts, just thinking like, oh man, just like this feeling of dread, and it just kind of like washed over me. Not dread, loneliness, whatever. I was just thinking like, man, would there be any worth or any worth of like being in a relationship, like a romantic relationship or some shit like that? Um, like yeah, like a romantic relationship or something like that. I mean, even with friends, like oh yeah, that's kind of what I wanted. The point I wanted to make was like maybe like probably especially those days that a few days ago, like when I said I was feeling that, especially that feeling. I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, man, just feeling like so lonely in that moment. Um, I'm trying to think of different words to describe it, but that's like the only one I could think of for whatever reason. Like isolated isn't proper, like because I'm not isolated, like physically not isolated, but maybe mentally isolated. But like that lonely kind of feeling, and I was thinking like, man, I am probably never going to have a like somebody that I would actually describe as like genuinely the term of like a friend or whatever thing like that, or somebody that I would consider like completely equal on by my that sounds like fucked up, and it probably is, like just somebody that I can't relate to 100%. I guess that would be the less fucked up way to put it. Like somebody I can't relate to 100%. Um, and it made me think. I was like, man, I probably have some pretty bad trust issues. Like by that I mean, or maybe trust, maybe trust trauma or trust issues, because like end of the day, my parents and everything have been very good parents to me. Like compared to other people that I've seen in my life, they've been much better parents than most. So I don't think it's anything to do with that for the most part. Like my mom's fucking crazy, but that's she's a loving person and a good mom. She's just fucking nuts. She's just fucking nuts and a logical person and everything like that in every sense. But that's, doesn't make her a bad mother, doesn't make me feel like some trauma from her or anything like that. It just gives me kind of experience or perspective on that. Um, and then when I've seen other people and other families or whatever, then I see like even worse kind of stuff where it's just like holy crap, like I can't imagine like growing up in that kind of environment or living with that kind of person or whatever, like. And then especially seeing stuff like relationships, like um romantic relationships, like man, I haven't seen many gay relationships, but like I've seen those too, and they could be pretty fucked up, like occasionally, very occasionally. But have I seen those? But like very rarely. But the ones where it's specifically, like heterosexual relationship or whatever, man and a woman. Paused it for a minute there, but yeah, like these relationships between romantic relationships, whatever, between an man and a woman, and I've seen so many of them throughout my life. Like my parents, my family or whatever, my biological family, whatever shit, my parents, brothers and shit, my uncles, aunts, and all that crap, extended family, other people that I was kids and stuff that I was friends with, their families to some extent. I didn't know just a few of my good, quote unquote, good previous friends that I was good friends with for years. I would see their families behind closed doors, and I would just always see the pattern. I was like, man, not like it wouldn't be across the board where I would just see where it was like an happy or like uneven relationship or whatever, like a imbalanced relationship or whatever. But I'll always just be thinking like only in a few cases was it really like did it seem like okay these two would probably be kind of happy with each other kind of shit. But then I look at my parents and I'm just like, oh my god, like how the fuck do these two like deal with each other? Like especially my mom or my dad. I don't know how the fuck my dad has dealt with my mom for like all these decades, like 40 years or whatever fucking bullshit. Or, yeah, like 40 years or some shit. Like what the fuck? Seriously, I tell him like, dude, you are you are even more crazy than she is if you married this one all those years ago, dude, and you stayed with her all this time and all that shit. That's just how I look at it, at least, and I'm coming from my own perspective, obviously. So from him, it's obviously something completely different. But to me, I'm just like, holy crap. Um, and then I see so many other things with in relationships. They just the guy getting fucked over or whatever. I mean, I've kind of gotten away from that because once again, that kind of mentality just would kind of go to a kind of victim blaming thing or victim blaming, no, like a victim mentality thing. um as the person you have within your power to get into a relationship with somebody or some shit. But I still have those feelings that come up where I'm just like, um maybe it's more so just the kind of desire to be in a physical closeness to somebody else. Like I don't know if I ever talked about this, or maybe I talked about it a little bit, but there's this one girl that I went out with for a little bit. This is like after did some online dating shit. She was completely like different fucking body type than I was. It was like crazy. This is before I was doing the fasting stuff, so I was a little bit. I was like 40 pounds fatter. I didn't really look fat. I just kind of looked like skinny fat. When you actually like took my shirt off, I just had like a little bit of a muffin kind of going on shit. So I didn't look that bad at the end of the day. But she was a fucking pretty heavy girl, but she was tall. She was fucking tall, like way taller than I was. Like I don't know what the hell she was. She was like 6'2". I'm like 5'4" whatever the fuck that is in European meters and meters and centimeters. But she was like 6'2" or whatever. So she was a fucking big fucking chick. Tall, so but she was big enough that even with that height, she was pretty fucking heavy looking. So she was pretty fucking big. I don't know why, I was just doing the online dating shit for a while, for like a few weeks or months or some shit. I went out with one girl who was like, all right, and then I decided to try out more. I was like, hey, what the hell? Why am I gonna settle for one? I was just playing around, kind of playing the field, seeing what the hell was going on. Um, but this one was the specific one, the big girl I'm talking about. I mean, she had a nice face. If she was a lot skinnier, she would probably have a pretty nice face. She had a cute face, and she had nice, because of, I guess, she had decent breasts and all that stuff. She was attractive enough that I was like, okay, what the hell. But I went out with her for like a few weeks. I'm kind of forgetting. It was probably a few months, technically. She lived in Staten Island, which is like New York City kind. It's not New York City. It's like the off the coast. I don't know how the fuck to describe it. It's like it's over the bridge of New York, kind of. Um, but yeah, Staten Island, whatever, like the East Coast near New York kind of shit. Staten Island. Um, and I was driving out there, which is, it's not like that far of a drive, but it was long enough. I'm not somebody who'd really be driving that far, but I was going out there to see her and stuff. And we had fun. Going Me going to her house or whatever. She lived with just her mom and everything. So it was interesting. But obviously we were doing it a lot for the physical kind of intimacy of it. And that part is the most interesting part that I experienced, obviously, because there was no time before that where I like the one girl before this one was honestly the first girl that I like kissed or whatever, like actually like kissed on the lips and shit like that. I know it sounds fucking stupid, but it was. So that was something that was a new experience to me, and it was honestly I didn't like it that much. The actual like closeness of it was nice, but then the actual like smell of spit from fucking both of your mouths or whatever, it wasn't that enjoyable. Afterward, I'm like, man, what the fuck? People like this? Um, so I was never too into that part. Uh, but then with this other one, I got more physical, like in the other physical part, like all the rest of the body kind of shit. Um, and touching and more stuff like that, and it was a very interesting sensation. Like, um, my one friend, uh, that I used to hang out with, he was a much more even. Yeah, he was an even more introverted person than myself, and I guess much more of a like I don't know. He was kind of we were different in a lot of ways, but similar in many others. Especially we like video games and stuff. We liked using the internet and all that shit. That was our commonality and everything, and we were friends since we were young. But he was always somebody who was like put off by physical contact. Like our one friend that once again was a friend that wasn't he introduced me as a friend from another friend, this other person I was a friend with, and he was much more somebody who, I mean, he was gay, but or bi, whatever. He was basically like he tried to identify as gay kind of shit, but he was much more into that kind of physical contact sort of thing. Like he enjoyed being touched or whatever, like physical contact or like being up against somebody else or like putting his head against somebody else or having that kind of shit. He liked that. He was comfortable with that. But the other friend, he was complete like if that other friend like put his head on his, he would like actually like be annoyed by it and like like try and shove him away or push him away, like that kind of shit. But me, I was always like in the middle there. Like I wasn't so much that I'd be like, um, touching other people if they didn't want to be touched kind of deal. But I was fine with being physically touched and stuff like that. And I do like the sensation. But with that, it was interesting to be touched by somebody else in a more, like intimate kind of way, in a sexual kind of way, one that I had not experienced before. Um, so it's obviously just the first experience for anything kind of thing, but it was interesting, and I did enjoy it in that sense. But I didn't enjoy it enough for the other trade offs, like what was it when we actually had like actually did the deed. Technically, I was like, man, fucking condom is completely fucking terrible feeling. Like you don't feel fucking shit. But maybe it was just because one, it might have been too tight or some bullshit, wasn't fitted right or something. It just fucking was like, it was just choking me. I was like, well, it was choking me down there. I was like, what the fuck? I can't feel shit almost. People enjoy this fucking thing on. It's fucking horrible. Uh, I mean, I've jerked off with a condom before just to try it out, and it's not like awful, but it is way worse, like way less sensitivity and shit like that. It's just way worse. And doing it in that sense, but I was also stressed out and everything because I was like, the first time doing it, I was anxious and shit. So it's obviously one of the bigger factors there. I wasn't comfortable at the time, so it wasn't as good of an experience or whatever. Um, And after that, I was just like, man, I don't think this is worth pursuing this kind of shit. If that's all that was kind of deal. And I know, obviously, it wasn't a great um, example or whatever to go by. Like, it wasn't a great first thing to go by. Like, especially that kind of thing where I couldn't even climax or whatever because I was so anxious at the time. Or I was so uncomfortable that I couldn't even like finish myself kind of thing. So I couldn't get those uh chemicals or whatever, the the chemical sensation from the whole experience. So obviously I'm going to be less um willing to want to like seeing it as something that's that special. I was like, oh, that's how it was. Like people fucking go all this work and all this bullshit fucking their whole lives just to get this or whatever. I was like, not that. I'm not that keen on it. That's how I felt. That's how I felt. Though I did enjoy, like I said, the physical contact, the kind of intimacy of being close to somebody else, like falling asleep in somebody else's um with somebody else or what kind of like I would not want to be sleeping with somebody else in the same bed that I'm like, man, that'd be a fucking pain. That'd be annoying. Other person like rolling and doing their own thing and you might I wouldn't like that shit. But like sitting in a chair and stuff like that, I would fall like falling asleep with somebody else. That was nice. Nice experience. And I'm glad I did experience it, but I just looked at it, I was like, man, like I looked at it like the ideal is that you'd obviously look for the ideal as we all do, and I was thinking like, the ideal of a relationship with somebody else sounds pretty nice. The ideal of being intimate with somebody else is nice, but then the kind of reality sets in, or the actual when you see the reality of it, where it's not as ideal or it's not ideal at all or whatever shit, you're just like, oh man, fuck that. And that's kind of what I've said to myself, that I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like getting into any of that kind of shit myself. That's how I've kind of uh, gotten myself to look at it. And I know so many guys that are in relationships, they'll always be saying, "Oh, dude, you gotta get fucking, you gotta be with fucking a chick or some shit." That'll be their fucking NPC response. That you need to get with somebody or some bullshit. But like, no, like I have almost no desire at all to be like, say, have a kid or some shit, or like father a child or something like that. When I was never somebody who was like a big fan of kids in terms of like my dad, he's different. Like he's much different to me in that sense. Like he has patience for kids, I guess, or he is good at dealing with kids, and stuff like that, and entertaining them and being like patient with them or whatever. I mean, not so much that I don't have patience for it, but I wouldn't be able to like entertain the kids like he does. I guess I'm very dry and sarcastic. I'm not like goofy in my kind of humor most of the time, so I can't be like, hey, doing fucking pull my finger, shit like that or whatever. Got your nose, that kind of thing. So I'm like, I don't think I would want to do that. I have like no desire to do that. Um, and that would be a conflict because I think most women, a lot of the times, they get in relationships because that's what they want is kids. They want to take care of kids or whatever. They want to be a mother to kids. So I wouldn't be very good for that. But then I was also mentioning earlier is that the kind of trust issue things because I'm just thinking like, man, me, the way I look at things, like you see porn online. I know porn is fucking it is fucking brain rot in so many ways. Like it's toxic to the mentality in so many ways. It gives those quote unquote ideals in so many fucked up ways. So it is a bad thing and bad. It is a I don't know what else to say but bad. It's something that harms. I would say more so than anything. Even though I do enjoy porn. It's just it's definitely I could see it being something that is harmful in many ways. Uh but what is it? Like with that, for some reason the fucking idea of like what is it? Cuckold porn or whatever shit like that. That's becoming probably almost definitely artificially more popular the past few like years or whatever shit as that kind of thing is like cuckolding and stuff. Uh, I guess it'd be like the guy who is in the relationship with the person or something, basically having some other guy like cheating kind of shit like that. Like it's a fetishizing of cheating, but for some reason the person getting cheated on is getting arousal from it or something like that, or the person watching it is getting arousal from that kind of humiliation of the person or some bullshit. Completely fucked up thing I look at it. Um, but I look at that and I'm like, man, thought I heard like somebody scream or some shit. I was like, what the fuck was that? Um, but the way I look at it, I'm like, man, the way that so many women that I've seen, at least maybe normie women, like I don't know any of these women that are into this like kind of shit that we're into or whatever. That this kind of group, I have no idea how they specifically think, but I have a feeling it's probably not too dissimilar to the kind of normie women to some extent. Like, uh, they're probably much more attracted to things that they would not like to admit that they are, like displays of power and dominance and shit like that. Uh, and it was funny too with the girl that I was going. She said that that was her kind of thing that she wanted was a guy that would like dominate her or some shit. And I was just thinking when she mentioned that, I was just thinking like, man, one, there's no way the fuck that's happening because I'm not really into that kind of thing. I like it to be like an equal kind of not so much that one is being the leader per se or whatever. I wasn't too into that. As well as she was fucking bigger than me by a significant margin. I was like, how the fuck am I gonna dominate anything like that? I was like, how the fuck is that gonna work? So I was like, that's not gonna work right there. But I think women they mostly look for that kind of thing. Like they look for somebody who can take lead. I can take lead, but like take lead in that kind of physical kind of thing. Like I'm not a weak guy. Like I can do like fucking some physical shit, but I'm a small guy now, especially. So I can't like fucking. I'm not gonna be going around fucking shoulder bashing people or whatever. Like I'm not that fucking big. I can't break that. Like I mean, I could like these cheap doors in this house, but like break down like big fucking doors and shit. I can't like do that like physically. It's not something that, like I don't have enough weight for that weight or stature for that. Like and just other shit like that. Kind of I'm not like super competitive at all. Like I don't have that kind of mentality. Whatever this is going by the whole like shit with the alpha male mentality kind of bullshit. But I believe that that's sort of true to some extent. But the point I'm trying to make is like I would not be like I wouldn't meld with somebody, and I would probably be the one almost a jealous kind of thinking. Not that I'm a jealous person in like almost any way, but if I was in a relationship, that would be my kind of like thing where it'd be um monogamous, like just that idea of somebody else being with that person and them betraying my trust. That's what I would feel like, betraying my trust and doing like that. I'd be like, oh my god, like that's when I see that kind of porn shit where it's like the cuckold shit. It fucking annoys me because I'm like, oh my god, like I could not fucking do that bullshit. And then I would just be like, hey, I'm done with all relationships after that point. If somebody betrayed, like, in that way, if somebody betrayed my trust, like that's how I would feel. That's how I would react to it. Probably be like, you know what, fuck you and fuck this. I ain't getting any involved with any of this bullshit again. Like, and I haven't had somebody like besides maybe my friends where I felt like I would cross oceans for them, but they wouldn't even cross a puddle for me. Like I felt like even then my trust was betrayed in that way. But then I was thinking like even more in a romantic thing, I'd be like, oh fuck that. So maybe for me it's like kind of a trust, like maybe I have trust issues. I don't have faith in people. I have faith in many things. I have faith in this reality to provide, and faith in this place to uh, provide and protect me, or whatever shit, like to exist here and all that stuff. I have faith in that, and faith that this place is a simulation, and that all the stuff that we talk about, like that thing is limited. I have faith that all this stuff is unlimited. There is no limits and shit like that. I have faith in that, but I don't have faith in people. I guess I don't have faith in people to be trustworthy. Um, Even though I do at the same time, like faith, like maybe not so much faith in them to continue to be trustworthy, which is kind of ironic. I guess you had an oxymoron. Like that is trust is kind of like an extended period to some extent. I don't have faith in people's ability to continue being good friends with me, I guess, or like faith in them being able to continue to be stimulating for me and stimulating um being equal on the same kind of relate to me or whatever, I guess. For romantic relationships, I don't have faith, especially in women that I see in this realm or whatever, in this actual like flesh realm, not the ideals. I see them and I'm just like, there's no fucking way that they would be able to come to my standards of what I would want a person to be that I would want to be in a relationship with, kind of shit. So I'm just like, the feeling of loneliness because I was just thinking like, man, there's no goddamn way that's happening. But even though right in that moment I was just like, you kind of wish that you had somebody to just fucking like hold or cuddle with or fucking hold be physically in contact with or intimate with or whatever shit just in that moment, or sexually or something like that. That's just the feeling that I was feeling in that moment, and it was a really painful, um, hurtful feeling or whatever of dread, and I probably would have described it much better on that day, even though I think this is not a terrible way that I'm describing it right now. I guess. Um, but that's how I was feeling, and then that's why I kind of was thinking like, man, I pretty sure I do have some trust issues, and I don't know if I could ever really amend that, and I don't know if anybody could really make me like not have those trust issues. I realize because almost nobody comes to my high standards of what I see for people, of what I see as people, and it's ironic because I'm also the person that I almost think of it in like a very communistic kind of way. That's the only way I could describe it, like a kind of hive mind kind of way, in that everybody like things should be free and people and things are free. It's just that people um willingly they make things not free for themselves. They make things cost quote unquote cost stuff. They give things these values, and they decide to be um hoarders. They decide to be hoarders of things and selfish and not giving and stuff. Like me, I look at it the way, especially with stuff like the code that I make and the programs that I make. I want people to be able to use what I've done to make their experience, if they ever do go down that same path, easier. And so they don't have to go through the same hoops that I had to go through potentially. Or they could do it faster or something like that with less pain and less stress to do something like that's what I want to do. Like the kind of, I guess, like like teachers are pieces of shit. Teachers in this actual reality are pieces of shit. But the teaching mentality of wanting to teach and help others, the altruistic kind of thing. And that's why I try to make my programs and all that I do, my assets that I make, my art assets, whatever my images, I try to share them and make them freely available. Even if I wasn't kind of here kind of thing, like, freely available without me having to give them permission kind of shit. I try to do that, but then I it hurts my faith in other people when I see others going the more materialistic or whatever, the kind of hoarder or selfish, distrustworthy kind of mentality where they want to lock their intellectual property behind things and make it harder for people to access it. That fucking pisses me off because I'm just like, a lot of the times you person that is doing that, you had help from somebody that decided to make their thing free and openly available to others. But then you're just like, well, I'm just gonna lock all my things and all my work and all my shit behind something because I don't want somebody stealing what I did. Even though, at the end of the day, the way that this reality works and how things work, you didn't really make that. You didn't do that. Everybody did that. That's how I kind of look at it. Like, it sounds fucked up to some, I would know that, but that's why I decide to share stuff. But that's why I lose faith in other people to do that when I see that kind of shit, and it fucking annoys me to no end when I see that. And it makes me dislike that person like right away, where I'm just like, oh, I don't care like what, like I could like you, but at the same time, when you're one of those people that are so fucking, it's ironic that I'm saying that, so unfaithful or untrustworthy of other people that you think that all they're there to do is steal your fucking shit, when at the end of the day that's not what 99.9% of people are ever going to even try to do. Like, they don't have faith that people are willing to donate to them without having to put a paywall there. Like, that would be my mentality, is that if put up a thing and be like, hey, if you want to donate to me for whatever reason, go ahead. If you feel that desire to do it, go ahead. But I would never put a paywall. That's the ideal that I think of. That's the ideal that I look at. I would never put a paywall to prevent somebody from doing that. Just, the openly, freely available, feel free to pay if you want to or whatever shit, donate if you want. You don't have to, though. But these people, they put everything behind paywalls and shit because they don't have faith. They don't have trust in other people that they would support them to do that without putting it behind a lock and key, basically. And that kind of shit disgusts me to no end, especially with stuff like software and stuff like art. That's something I always have become to dislike a lot. I don't really know how I got on that part, that kind of thing, but I guess it kind of came into the lack of faith or trust of people that I feel like I have. And do I think I'll ever overcome it? I don't know. Like, I'm so cynical about so many things and how people act that it's probably not. And it's good to be able to acknowledge it, obviously, because then you could kind of work around it or overcome it to some extent, know when those feelings are coming. But I feel like I'm too untrustworthy to ever feel like I would ever want to get into like a real, quote unquote, real romantic relationship with any people in this realm. Just because I've seen too much stuff where it's like it just would not work for me. it would devolve into me just being like, you know what, I don't want to commit to this. I'm not a person that I particularly like commitment as well. That's why I don't probably work very well on a team or whatever. I want my work to be the stuff that I'm responsible for, and I don't want to have to rely on other people to do stuff that I could be doing myself, I guess. That I could 100% trust myself to do, or not trust myself to do. I don't have to worry about the variables of other people and their flakiness and their inability to come to my standards of what I view as an ideal person, I guess. Um, yeah, and I don't know. That's just kind of what, just one way that I've been describing some of the feelings that I've been having recently. Um, the kind of dread or loneliness or sadness. I don't know why all of a sudden. I mean, I've had these feelings many times before, and this is like even years ago. They just come up in like waves, as I said. But just at the beginning of this new year, I was feeling that like the past few days, like those kind of emotions, and I don't know. I just wanted to kind of, like I said, get it out there because I'd been thinking about it. I was like, I feel like I should record what I'm feeling right now and just get it out there. Instead of just letting it kind of just waft away in a few weeks or whatever, a few months when it goes away. Or a few days sometimes where it just goes away. So that's why I wanted to do this. And yeah, that was a really long ramble vent or whatever, but maybe somebody besides myself will find this interesting or relatable. But yeah, I hope that the more pleasant, yeah, I guess the more pleasant emotions will be coming up, the more hopeful emotions will be coming up soon enough. Um, for myself. And I'm glad to have seen in that recent video that Christoph had where he felt what was it, relief about going against the whole scapegoat thing, and I completely understand that. That is a euphoric feeling that I felt as well, a relief to take almost full responsibility upon myself for my lot in this existence or whatever, for my own life and existence and everything, instead of blaming it on other people. Because all the stuff that I just said, I'm not blaming it on other people. I'm just kind of realizing that I do not fit. My standards and my high standards and my mentality do not fit with other people here, and that will come with lots and lots of inevitable feelings of isolation and loneliness. That's just how it is. Like, and looking at other people and saying like, "Oh my goodness, I can't be like that because that is not me." Um, but there is immense relief at the same time for that kind of thing, and not blaming others or other outside things and only looking at yourself at the end of the day. Um, but yeah, I don't know what else. I don't really have much else to say in this exact moment, so I'll just probably end it here. But thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed somehow this little ramble here, and yeah, I will see you next time, and take care.